EPIC Plus stands for Education, Process Improvements, and Compliance for Environmental Risk Reduction. Originally, the program started as the Environmental Protection Indicators for California, or EPIC project, a collaborative effort of the California Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Health Services, and an external advisory group consisting of representatives from business, public interest groups, academia, and local government. Once this ended, the work group here in San Diego continued the project and renamed the project EPIC Plus. EPIC Plus is a joint project of BioComm, the San Diego County CUPA, and the Industrial Environmental Association, or IEA. The work group continues to meet several times per year. This online training is divided into 5 sections and a pre- and post-test. The first section will discuss the criteria for participation in the EPIC Plus program and violation categories. The next 3 sections will discuss the top 10 violations cited at Biotechs in the past year, and they will be broken into specific topics: hazardous waste, hazardous materials, and medical waste. The last section is a summary that includes several survey questions. Though the name of the project has changed, the goal has remained the same: measuring unified program compliance through education and outreach. By working together, this work group, consisting of industry participants and unified program regulators, process improvements, procedural changes have been implemented to make compliance with unified program laws and regulations easier. Since the beginning of this program, the strategy has been the same. A baseline was established by querying the CUPA's database for the top 10 most cited violations at biotechnology firms. Then a series of workshops were conducted, providing education and implementing process improvements to improve unified program and medical waste compliance. And eventually, the program will expand to other industry sectors. At this time, the EPIC Plus program is open to biotechnology and laboratory testing facilities in San Diego County. For this program, biotechnology facilities include process development, manufacturing and development of analytical laboratory devices and instruments, medical and surgical instruments, medicinal chemicals, botanical products, pharmaceutical preparations, and biological products. Additionally, testing laboratories are laboratories where relatively small quantities of hazardous chemicals are handled or are used for the purposes of research, analysis, clinical testing or product development, testing or quality control, are all eligible at this time for participation in the EPIC Plus program. To participate in the EPIC Plus program, a full-time business employee must demonstrate that he or she meets low-risk performance standards by completing this online training annually. Another criteria is that during the last CUPA inspection, the business must have had no significant violations and not more than 2 Class 2 or minor violations. For clarification, an outside consultant does not qualify as a full-time business employee. Remember, it is always the business's responsibility to comply with all laws and regulations. Eligibility. A business must have had 2 unified program inspections to be eligible for the program. However, if the new business site is a satellite site to an already EPIC Plus participating business, then the new site is eligible if it has demonstrated the low-risk performance standards. Inspection performance. For businesses interested in participating or who are already participating, the inspection performance will be rated and scored. A business must rate less than 15 points to meet the low-risk inspection criteria. Class 2 and minor violations are scored 5 points each. Significant violations will score 15 points each, and each incidental violation will be scored 2 points. Understanding the definition of these violations is important and will be discussed shortly. Incentives. So what's in it for the business? First, the frequency of inspections will be reduced from once every 18 months to once every 3 years. Second, the business's permit base fee, waste and materials fee will be reduced by 25%. A business must remember that failure to maintain a low-risk performance standard will trigger a return to an 18-month inspection frequency, and the fees will revert back to the standard schedule. Businesses with underground storage tanks and those which are large quantity generators of medical waste will remain on a 12-month inspection frequency as required by law. These fees cannot be reduced. The inspection conducted annually will focus on just the underground storage tank and/or just on the medical waste. However, if a violation is observed, it will be cited as deemed appropriate by the inspector. This would be evidence of a business not maintaining the low-risk performance standards set forth in this program.
There are 3 violation categories: Class 1, Class 2, and Minor. Each category has different consequences and corrective action. First, let's talk about the different categories. State law defines minor violations for all elements of the unified program. However, only the hazardous waste law specifies the 3 violation categories. So in order to make it understandable for all involved, the California CUPAs have agreed to informally apply these categories to all elements of the unified program. A Class 1 violation is the most severe of them all. A Class 1 violation is defined as a deviation that represents a threat to human health or safety or to the environment. A violation will be determined to be a Class 1 if a threat is evident by the volume of waste, relative hazard of the waste, and/or the proximity of population at risk. For example, the management of waste containing cyanide and acidic waste at a metal plating business represents a greater threat to human health or safety than the management of used antifreeze and oil at an auto repair business. A deviation from requirements could result in a failure to ensure that hazardous waste is delivered to an authorized facility, prevent releases of hazardous waste to the environment, ensure early detection of releases, ensure adequate financial resources in the event of a release, ensure adequate financial resources for facility closure, perform emergency cleanup or other corrective actions for releases. A Class 1 violation is also a chronic Class 2 violation or a Class 2 violation committed by a recalcitrant violator. Chronic is defined as a pattern of behavior. Violations of the same requirement identified in 2 consecutive inspections may be considered chronic. Recalcitrant is a person or business who actively refuses to comply with the regulatory requirements or who has engaged in a pattern of neglect or disregard for statutory or regulatory requirements. Here is an example of a Class 1 violation. During a July 5, 2009 inspection, a label is observed with the accumulation start date of September 3, 2008 at a LQG. Operator indicates facility only generates this waste in the fall due to changes in seasonal production, and it takes longer to actually fill the drum. It costs too much to ship the drums that are not full. Manifests show very little waste to ship from the facility in the spring in past years. Majority of the requirement is being ignored. Storage without a TSDF permit. The facility has a pattern of neglect during low production times and with this waste. A Class 2 violation is defined by what it is not. It is not a minor violation, nor is it a Class 1 violation. Generally speaking, a Class 2 violation is a repeat minor violation, a facility with multiple minor violations, and or a site that has failed to correct a minor violation within the specified time frame. Here is an example of a repeat minor violation. In this example, a business was inspected and had 5 out of 10 hazardous waste labels that were not completely filled out correctly, but they were filled out correctly during the inspection. This violation was not cited, but a remark was made that the minor violation was corrected during the inspection. At the next inspection, 18 months later, the inspector observed that 6 out of 10 hazardous waste labels were incomplete. The same violation has been repeated and thus could be cited as a Class 2 violation. Here is another example. An open 55-gallon drum of organic solvent waste is observed in the waste storage area, which is a designated area on the loading dock. The loading dock is at the back of the business next to a creek bed. This violation could be cited as a Class 2 violation because of the increased risk due to location of the open waste drum on the high traffic loading dock, which could easily be knocked over, and its proximity to the creek bed.
So what's a minor violation? It is not a violation that results in an injury. It is not willful or intentional. It is not chronic or committed by a recalcitrant violator. If there is evidence indicating that the violator has engaged in a pattern of neglect or disregard with respect to applicable regulatory requirements, it is used to determine if a violation is chronic or a violator is recalcitrant.
Also, a minor violation does not include violations that allow an operator to benefit economically or one that hinders a CUPA inspection or results in an emergency response. For instance, if a permitted business moves to a new site and does not notify the CUPA of the new business site and generates hazardous waste, they could be cited a Class 1 or Class 2 violation for non-notification. They benefited economically by not paying as other businesses do.
Here's an example of a minor violation for an open container. An open 55-gallon drum of aqueous waste is observed in a locked storage shed, designated for hazardous waste storage. The shed is inside a concrete bermed area. This would be a minor violation because there is no economic benefit, no perceived threat, since it is in a shed covered and the proximity is mitigated by it being inside a bermed area.
For minor violations cited during an inspection, a notice to comply will be issued. This is written on the inspection report. That is the only enforcement action that can be taken.
The Health and Safety Code, Chapter 6.11, provides a safe harbor for minor violations from enforcement action if the minor violations are corrected within the specified time frame, which is not to exceed 30 days, and they also must notify the CUPA of the corrective action within 5 days. In other words, the business must notify of corrective action within 35 days to enjoy the benefits of the safe harbor. The County of San Diego's Department of Environmental Health is the CUPA for San Diego County. As the CUPA, it inspects facilities for compliance with the Unified and Medical Waste programs. At the end of each inspection, the CUPA inspector will issue a report. If minor violations are cited, then it will contain a notice to comply. If minor violations are corrected during the inspection, then a remark may be made. A notice of violation will be issued for significant violations like Class 2 and Class 1. Here is a copy of the corrective action form that can be used by businesses to document that they have corrected the cited violations. A business may also submit a letter on their company's letterhead to document corrective action. They may provide photos, copies, or other documentation that states or illustrates that the corrective action has occurred. This form can be found on our website. Enforcement for violations. Remember, all violations must be corrected, and documentation must be submitted. Typically, the corrective action form is sufficient. However, read the inspection report for additional information that may be required. Failure to correct violations may result in administrative, civil, or criminal enforcement. As stated previously, a minor violation corrected during the inspection will not be cited. Instead, a remark will be written on the report. However, it is important to remember this. If this remarked minor violation that was corrected during the inspection becomes a repeat violation at the next inspection, the business may be cited a Class 2 violation. Here is an example of a report where a remark has been made for a minor violation that was corrected during the inspection. Chronic violations and recalcitrant violators are areas that businesses tend to forget. Remember, chronic violations are repeat violations and can be cited as Class 1 or Class 2 violations. A recalcitrant violator is one that's engaged in a pattern of neglect or disregard, and violations can be cited as Class 2.
Here are 6 of the 12 significant violations that will score an inspection 15 points if cited. These have been determined by the work group. If you recall, 15 points will make a business ineligible for EPIC Plus and will disqualify an already participating business. Number 1, no Unified Program Facility Permit. Number 2, no EPA ID number. Number 3, operating a Treatment Storage Disposal Facility, a TSDF, without authorization. Number 4, failure to notify the CUPA of on-site hazardous waste treatment. Number 5, incompatible stored in the same container. And number 6, container incompatible with the waste. And the next 6 of the 12 significant violations are: number 7, unauthorized disposal to land or sewer. Number 8, unlawful transportation of hazardous waste. Number 9, waste transported without a manifest. Number 10, failure to report a release or threatened release. 11, enclosure or designated accumulation area for medical waste containers not secured. And last, number 12, medical waste treated by an unapproved method or procedure.
Earlier in this section, incidental violations were mentioned. Incidental violations are not referred to in the laws and regulations. They were specifically categorized for this program. There are only 3 incidentals, and they can score a business 2 points if cited. The incidental violations are: 1, no record of lead-acid battery disposal. 2, annual carcinogen and reproductive toxin list is not submitted to the HMD. Note, this is also one of the top 10 violations for this year. And 3, medical solid waste is not secured to deny access to unauthorized persons. And this will be discussed further in the medical waste section. Great! You have completed the introductory section. Please close out of this section and continue on to the next module, hazardous waste. Thank you!